The word potential is synonymous with battle shonen or even battle manga in general. You always have that one young character that's gassed up as the next big thing, or like, hey, watch out because he's gonna be scary in a couple years. Think Toshihiro from Bleach, Megami from JJK, Gon from Hunter x Hunter. To be honest, a lot of the veteran hunters knew the monster line within Gon way before the P2 stuff, and even during Greed Island he showed some spurts. Itagaki from Ippo, if you have not read Ippo, highly recommend. Damn near half the cast of MHA, and the list goes on. But for the next gen going forward, especially if this gets an anime, I do think Shin Asakura from Sakamoto Days is the next one up. Shin is the right-hand man and apprentice under Taro Sakamoto, the legendary assassin. He's pretty much an orphan who was took in by a scientist and drunk the wrong stuff and gained some power. His power is clairvoyant, so he's a mind reader of people within 20 feet. And for an assassin, Shin is pretty damn good. He's skilled in close combat, already has a high IQ. With clairvoyance, Shin can be the best partner to have by your side and also the worst matchup you can get as well. Even though he's nowhere near a Nagamo, a Shishibo, or even some of the minor antagonists and members of the order, he's growing by every fight and using this clairvoyance in the most versatile way depending on the area and the opponent. He's used it for infiltration and stealth, which is GG for any plans or mysteries you have. But for combat, he can telegraph ahead what they're thinking and even their emotions to make a counter. His fights and his style in general is always pretty interesting, as it's fun to watch because he feels like this skilled underdog going against these assassins and hunters who are trying to kill him and knock his head off. And I like that with his youth, and even though he's supposed to be kind of like a prodigy or someone that has a power that could be extremely useful, I like that Suzuki shows he's ignorant. He doesn't have the experience to even the little things that you would expect him to have. When he first showed up, he was kind of fiery, a little hot-headed, but as he got close with Sakamoto, he's calmed down immensely. But Sakamoto and Shin working together with Shin's clairvoyance is pretty damn cool. Whether it's Sakamoto communicating through thought or the little quips that they have, which are pretty funny, or even when they team up as a tag team, they're the best duo and the best partners to have with one another. Now, naturally, when I first read Sakamoto Days, I thought, oh, your power is your power. You kind of just have to bring out the max potential in base. But Shin's power up with clairvoyance was motor readiness, which is future sight. Now he can read your mind and see your move in a wave of emotions. He can only use it for about 5 minutes a day. In a fight though, 30 seconds is a lifetime. At the same time, he can't overuse it either because of the extra pain it gives. And he's got these gloves as well to enhance his physical power, and for brownie points he has a poison resistance that he's built up depending on the strength of that poison. Shin's fights are pretty consistent, and each time he learns something new or different, it will stay in his kit. His best fight is kind of hard to boil down to because a lot of Shin's fights, he has a tag partner with him. But I will say, the fight where he looks the best, I think is his recent fight with Haruma. From a scaling standpoint, Haruma shouldn't lose, and Shin can show off his improvement and his need to be elite, but I think it's way too early for him to beat someone like Haruma, and clearly Suzuki felt the same way. And it's a good matchup because Haruma gets in his own way of this sports competitive gimmick he has that he plays with his food too much. The battle IQ had to be on point for Shin because he's solo fighting an assassin that is way stronger than him and trying to kill him. His clairvoyance couldn't really help him at this point in the fight, so he took the idea of predicting what sport he was gonna fight depending on the movement he made. So whether it was a volleyball movement as jumping in the air or maybe setting up for a spike, soccer with the shoot kicks, discus throw if he was going to spin and get a launch off, he had to remember all of it. The handball prediction was pretty cool because he thought of the goal as his mark to counter. He times his jump and gut checks him. He knew physically he couldn't stand a chance against Haruma, and that was running through his head the whole fight. The switch up of sports he threw at Shin was really dope and innovative, something I've never really seen before, especially in a battle manga. And the touchdown slammed through the roof into the circle of water it looked like something straight out of a fighting game. Then challenging him to a sumo match using the fountain sprays of water to lure him in and slow him down was clutch. Then, all of a sudden, he unlocks another component to his clairvoyance. In his head, he yells stop, and Haruma freezes and he takes him down afterwards. It's never been explained yet on how it works just yet, but if I had to guess, he probably has to channel his clairvoyance as if it's telepathy towards his opponent and it has to counteract the action of that person. Basically like Toge's cursed speech, but possibly could be more broken. In most of his team fights, they end up breaking down into 1v1s or people attacking one big move at a time. My favorite scene of him using clairvoyance in a team aspect was him linking with Kaiji. Now Kaiji is a soft-spoken dude and he has enhanced hearing, that's his power. So he thinks to himself a lot. In the moment, it was a 2v1 versus VR Gaku. The others got split up. And this VR Gaku took over Shinya, a random assassin participant. They stand absolutely no chance even with Gaku controlling the body, so Kaiji was trying to fight and give Shin instructions in his head on when to attack. It was too hard for Shin to try to do that on the fly with Kaiji, compared to Sakamoto, who pretty much made it easier when they did this because he did all the little stuff, so Shin had an easier path and it was more time to counter. So for option B, he decided to read the future movements of Kaiji to get a kickoff on Gaku. This is also the best section of the VR Gaku fight, and Kaiji's sound ability is really dope. I put it in there for top 5 for me in the verse in terms of powers that I like. Unfortunately, the fight ended up breaking down because Gaku took over the control of the body and he wanted to use more of his actual power, and at that time they stand absolutely no chance against Gaku, so Sakamoto came in and took care of business. The lab arc is the best at diving into the perspective of Shin from other people close to him and the people who work in the lab he was raised in. Asakura was a man who looked after Shin and treated him like his own son. He was tasked with experimenting on the superhuman abilities that were tested on people. But even when Shin drank that elixir and it worked, he was still more worried about his well-being than he was about succeeding in his experiment, which opened the eyes that not all people in this facility are crazy or evil people. Shin even took his last name into his full name, which is why he's now known as Shin Asakura. The fight against Horiguchi, who has a reverse power after many injections and tests on himself, he can reverse the actions and speech of one person at a time. This is probably the best link up he'll have with Sakamoto for now, because they knew the counter to all of his tricks. First, it started with hitting Shin, to then it would exchange and he's really damaging Horiguchi. Whenever I see stuff like this, it reminds me of games when they reverse your controls and up is down and left is right now. And then in the final exchange, they decided to pretty much overwhelm him by throwing punches at each other so much that he just got overwhelmed with choosing who to reverse and what not to, that he lost. Out of the new Gen deuteragonists that have come out within, we'll say the last 3 to 4 years, Shin is my favorite at the moment. And his development in every arc he's in is either he's doing something cool, or whether it be his power or his character. His future is going to be pretty interesting, as really he can go either direction. He can either be boosted in power really soon, because with the fight with Haruma, he's basically kind of been put in that situation where, okay, the next couple fights he has, he's got to be elite, because with 3 components to clairvoyance like this, only thing else is really to just focus on how better he can get physically. I feel like maybe Sakamoto is probably going to teach him a thing or two about kind of having more deliberate strikes, more precise, being able to go for the throat, but not being able to kill somebody at the same time, because at the end of the day, Sakamoto and the people in the squad, they just don't really kill people unless you're the Order. That's a whole different ball game. And just looking at it from, I guess, a character standpoint and the position of these characters, I feel like Shin's big fight, at least this is like really far deep into the future prediction, I feel like he is going to fight Gaku at some point. Considering Slurs are going to be Sakamoto's big villain at some point nearly the end of the series, I can definitely see Gaku fighting Shin, and that'd be a huge testament as to how elite Shin could be. And actually has some parallels and some similarities when you look into their characters. Even the way that they were brought in, they were both orphans that were brought up under 2 of the strongest characters in the series, but they have completely different directions in terms of how they were built up. Plus, their fighting styles are polar opposites. One has to be extremely tactical because he's not physically powerful, while the other is, I'm not going to say Gaku has a low battle IQ or that he's not tactical, but he's so overwhelmingly powerful because of his superhuman strength. He really doesn't need that much thought put into some of the stuff he does. But regardless, let me know in the comment section how you feel about Shin and the rest of Sakamoto Days. If you think that he can be like the big deuteragonist going into the new generation, let me know all that. And do you think he's going to be fighting Gaku or something like that at the end of the series? Leave a like and subscribe. I'll catch y'all in the next one. Peace.